everybody, and welcome to Anime Sickos, the podcast for geniuses, where we take a look at the four pillars of modern misery: anime, gaming, posting, and jobs. I am Tom, an anime sicko.
I am Joe, an anime sicko. And this week we have a wonderful Guesto episode, and we are joined by a special guest. Special guest, would you like to say your deal?
Yes, my name is Paul Starr, and I'm a manga and light novel translator by trade.
Like, I know that's a job because the stuff I consume has to come from somewhere. However, it sounds like you stepped out of a portal and you're like, yeah, there's a fantasy world where you can have a job doing anime.
Like, my conception of how the subtitles get onto stuff is that, like, well, it gets written by a guy in Japan, and then it, like, gets shot by mist, I guess, and then I download it.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff that happens between those two things. And surprisingly, I've only ever worked in the print publishing industry. I've never worked in, like, actually on anime. The closest I ever got to working on anime was working for New Type USA, the anime magazine, back when we had magazines.
That doesn't sound real.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't feel real, if I'm honest.
So you have combined the job pillar with the anime pillar, which I think is a very dangerous combination.
Those were the two pillars that I would think were the hardest to cross.
I mean, you know when you look back at something you thought was true and you're like, oh, that was extremely false.
No, I'm always correct.
I remember, like, when I was 20 or something, being really inspired by Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech when he said, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And that was extremely wrong.
Like,
That's not true.
He was doing a goof. You didn't realize.
It was a bit. He was doing a bit.
Yeah, he was testing his stand-up set. No one laughed. They were all like, great. Well, write that down. I'm going to put that on an e-card.
Which is not to say that, like, oh, my job is miserable, but it's a job.
Right.
You have to work.
So we're talking about, like, when you introduced anime and jobs as two of the four pillars of modern misery, it really crystallized something for me, which was, oh, that's why I'm so miserable all the time.
I have, like, one of those is fun, and it's sort of tainted by capitalism forever.
But no, I mean, my mom likes to make a lot of fun of me because when I was, 17 or something, I said, I want to be a translator for anime, but I'll never be able to. That's impossible. She was like, I don't know, you could learn Japanese and become a translator. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. And she's very smug now.
She was right. I mean, you got to give it to your mom. She
was right.
Yeah.
You can learn Japanese. I've seen it. It happens.
Yeah.
So did you study that as, like, a major in college, or how did the language acquisition happen?
No, I mean, well, yes. I studied it in college, but not as a major because my college did not have a major in Japanese because I didn't go to a, good school. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico originally, and I went to the University of New Mexico, which, as you might imagine, doesn't have a giant Japanese program.
Right.
So I studied as much as I could there, but there's only so far you can get at a school that has, like, 2.5 years of Japanese classes. And I was pretty motivated, but the classes still weren't very hard, and that's not because I was a genius. It was because the classes weren't very hard. And I was a giant dork about it. Like, I studied so hard. I wanted nothing more than for Sensei to say that I was the smartest boy. No, eventually I went to, as so many of my people did, I went to Japan on the JET program to in scare quotes teach English for a couple of years.
See, I feel like that was coming because I've taken language classes in the school, that's a fake. It's actually not a class. You just go into a room and there's white noise and you leave and you don't remember what happened.
Yeah.
I took 2 years of Italian in college. I know nothing now. And
wait, this is new to me. What? You're Italiano?
Yeah, Honestly, I signed up as a joke, and then I got my schedule, and I was like, oh shit.
Oh no, they're gonna make me do this.
And what I didn't realize is that the Italian classes and the Italian program, unlike the other language classes, was the only program where classes were 5 days a week, no matter what.
What?
Oh wow, so that was the real thing. Like, yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, and it was taught by two different professors. So, like, you'd have one Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the other one Tuesday, Thursday. One of them just talked about, like, how Southern Italians were worse. Which I've never taken better notes in my life.
Safal, you moved to Japan to, as you say, in quotes, teach English. Was this intentionally, like, this is the immersion fucking hyperbolic time chamber I'm going to go into, and when I emerge, I'm going to be a Japanese ninja. Well, I guess all ninjas are Japanese.
I knew that, like, to get myself to the next level, I had to go there. And so that's how I managed that, because I wasn't able to do study abroad while I was in actual college. So at that point, I graduated from school and had no idea what I wanted to do except, anime. So I knew I had to go, and that was the easiest way to get there. Since if you had, for a blessed span of about 10 years, if you had a college degree of any kind and were willing to go to Japan, you could get some kind of a job teaching English over there.
So I know not a lot about Japanese high school, but I certainly have watched a lot of media set in it. So basically, here's what I know about Japanese high school.
Oh man.
There's never a class. It doesn't happen. A class never starts unless someone is sleeping through it because they were fighting like superheroes the previous night. Also, attendance is optional, and every once in a while someone will be like, Shinichi-kun hasn't been to school in a week, and then we cut to Shinichi-kun and he's like fighting a huge monster in like the demon world.
Right.
And like the teacher is always sort of like frazzled and does not understand that the students are the main character in a story. Is that true?
Yes. Kind of, by which I mean no, not really. But what is true, like, and this is crazy because the Japanese education system is so like standardized and homogenized that all of the schools like look the same.
Oh wow.
And so like if you've watched some anime and you go to Japan and you like go to a high school, it's like, holy shit, anime is real. I knew it. I
thought that was just like a animation budget concern. I didn't realize it was
absolutely
that.
not. Like it's a weird, like, I'm sure there's a reason for it, and I don't know what it is other than probably something to do with like the path Japan took to westernization in the early 20th century. But like all of the schools look very much the same, and all of the architecture is all the same, and they all have like the 3 floors where it's the first year students on the first floor and second on the second floor and third on the third floor.
They all have those little placards on near the door.
Oh yeah, all the little signs that stick out. Yeah, those are all there. When the school, and then if you ever see it, so one thing that is absolutely exactly the same is when you get to the school festival episode.
What the fuck?
And they do like all the fun activities for the school festival, and like the whole class will get together and make their room into like a crazy thing, or they'll put on a show or whatever. That is like the most anime experience I've ever had in real life, because an actual Japanese school festival is just like it is in anime.
I thought that was filler. I thought that was just a thing they did.
No, it's totally real. And like, then, students getting sad because they know that, this is like their last festival before senpai graduates. That is completely real.
This is just like if you told me that, like, oh yeah, I went to the port one day and all the ships are made of wood and have big lions on the front. The Thousand Sunny is the only boat around there.
So when you sign up to do this, when you teach English, do you sign up for like a multi-year contract, like a tour of duty? How does that work?
It depends. I went on the JET program, which is like an official program run by the Japanese government where they place foreign nationals as like visiting English language teachers at school. So it's run by the government. When I was there, it goes 1 year at a time with like you have an option to re-up up to 3 years at the end of each year. I think they've extended it now since to 5. It's changed a lot since I was in it. Yeah, but like you go and they place you at a school or a number of schools in the district, and you just kind of do whatever the local teachers want you to do.
Mm-hmm. And so when did you feel like now I'm complete? I have the Japanese language skills to quite literally pay the bills.
I mean, I still have trouble keeping that in mind sometimes.
But eventually you did stop and become a professional translator.
Definitely. When I got my first translation job, that was a big moment. Like when I was in Japan and I did my first like business telephone call without anybody helping me.
Oh yeah.
I can't even do that in English.
Like when I had to like call the utility company or something to like get my gas bill sorted or something. I felt like a god when I did that for the first time in Japanese.
That should be the final test, where it's like, dispute this bill, go.
Oh god.
They're gonna be using a lot of proper nouns that you haven't heard before. You're gonna have to use context.
So as you are, I'm sure, painfully aware, there is a point where we have to ask you the question.
Yeah.
Are you an anime sicko?
I am a professional anime sicko.
Well, it was a foregone conclusion. It felt silly to ask, but we got it.
No. I've been looking forward to saying that for like a week.
If you said no, I would have just had a heart attack. You're like, I'm not really into it.
Yeah, like a manga, light novels, translating them is the same to me as a fucking instruction book for an air conditioner. I don't give a fuck. Joe, consider it. We are technically amateur anime sickos. Paul is the only pro. This is insane. We're the fucking opposite of senpai. I knew what's the word? What's the word?
It's kohai.
Kohai. Ah, fuck. Thank you, senpai.
Yeah, our ability to be an anime sicko has never allowed us to buy food. I've never got a burger because of this.
You say that, like, I listened to the Fate episode and it was like, oh, so this is what Fate's about. Okay. This sounds kind of cool. Maybe I should watch this.
We want to do an ongoing segment where we just find a juicy paragraph from the Fate wiki and just read it.
Although one thing, when you were explaining the whole origin of it, one thing leapt out to me, which is like, this is the only thing I know about Fate, which was... Did you know that it was originally, like, the first Fate thing ever was a porn game?
Yeah, yes, it was, because you, like, summoned Saber and then, like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, was it a porn game, or was it a game that had an anime girl in it, and they were just like, well, I mean, like, you know. I mean, like, come on.
So honestly, I was scandalized back when like the sort of the first iteration of the anime or whatever was coming out way back when I was at New Type USA. Like I was sort of amused or scandalized by what I knew to be its origins, and I said this to my senpai, who was an incredible otaku from Japan. He was the senior translator for New Type, and he told me, like, yeah, technically it was, but I mean, if you know enough about the industry, they really clearly were angling to have it get made into an anime that wasn't porno. They wanted like that not porno money. So like this was just sort of they were never really committed to it being a really dirty game. That's just how they did it the first time around. So apparently it's actually less licentious than I once thought it was. But
so they like did the smut stuff for like seed money.
Fuck!
Yeah, that seems to have been what it was.
I got a small loan from my father of 1 million naked pictures of Saber, and I turned that into a whole empire. Oh, fuck. So, Paul, if you are an anime person, if you watch a lot of anime, read a lot of manga, you sort of get to know Japanese onomatopoeia, and one of the most famous ones is doki doki, which is supposed to be the sound of a heartbeat. Issue is it does not sound like that at all. Where's the K and I sound in a heartbeat, Japan? Sorry, honey, try again, you're wrong. It fucking sounds like thump for sure. What's the deal?
So there's a TH in the heartbeat?
Oh, he got you. He got you.
Yes. Yes. Trick question. There, you were trying to trick me. Yes, there is. It's the th in the thump.
It's the yeah. Where do you fall on dokyun? That's still got a K, right?
I think the I and the doki really like accentuates the K, where that does not. That sounds more like I could deal with that being the heartbeat sound effect.
Right.
Doki doki is like, are you fucking kidding me? Who do you like? We're all like, who are you talking to? Like, who are you trying to fool? I'm right here. I got a heart.
You've heard a heart before.
Yeah, if mine starts going doki doki, like I gotta go to a doctor.
Okay, so I'm gonna run a few sound effects by you, and you tell me what you think they sound like.
Ooh, fun game, like it.
This is an easy one. How about pasha pasha?
Is that like wind?
No.
I was gonna say someone pushing a big bellows to do a. Is it like pushing something?
No, it's like splashy splashy. It's like splashing.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. How does goro 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 strike you?
Is that the sound of something rolling?
Shit.
Did I get that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Whoa.
nice. Well, for the next one, I'm going to say something dumb like, that's powering up. So.
I was going to guess... that's a rotund One Piece character laughing.
That's pretty good. How about noro noro?
That kind of sounds like the last one to me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it sounds like something that starts with an N rolling.
It's only one consonant off, but it means something quite different. This is kind of a trick question. That's the sound of doing something real slow.
What?
Oh.
Just being real lazy about it.
That has a sound?
Oh, yeah.
Is that...
Not only are there a bunch of onomatopoeia for things that we don't have, like what's the sound of a snake slithering? It's nyoro nyoro.
No, it's not.
But there are a bunch of onomatopoeia for things that just should have a sound.
Like, there are words for vibes, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. So, what do you think the word soa soa?
Sewing, really fast sewing, like extreme tailoring.
No, man, it's the sound of being nervous.
That doesn't make a sound. What?
That's the sound of the snake that you just said before. This is a nightmare.
No, Joe, the sound of the snake was norovirus. You get it on cruise ships.
There are so many of these things. I actually have a dictionary that is just onomatopoeia.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and when I saw it in the Japanese bookstore, I lost my mind and bought it immediately. I was because sometimes you'll see something in a manga and just be like, what the fuck? And they don't teach you in class.
So is that meant for, like, foreigners, or is there any reason, like, a Japanese national would be like, I need this book?
No, it's a Japanese to Japanese dictionary for Japanese people to look up obscure onomatopoeia.
Wow.
Yeah.
So even they admit it doesn't sound like the thing, because otherwise you just know.
When I read manga, like, there's for sure symbols all the time to represent a lot of these sounds, and I just honestly ignore them because I'm dumb, and I wonder, like, how many I have passively ran my eyes over since I've started. I can't even imagine.
I mean, most of the manga that gets published on print in the United States does have some degree of translation for the sound effects. At least like a little subtitle explaining what it is, and sometimes they get really elaborate and retouch it out. I know Viz, for their print stuff, they retouch everything out, so all the sound effects are in English. Mm-hmm. As you might expect, that can be very time-consuming, like literally altering the art, because it's built into the art. It's not like the text.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I know that in One Piece, at least in the sort of weekly translations that Viz puts out, like, there are huge characters in huge black, bold for the sound effects, and then there's like the tiniest baby's handwriting saying like boom in 2-point font. So it's supposed to be like a panel that in Japanese you would instinctively know like, oh, there's a big roaring boom, and to me it's like Luffy is being very polite, I guess. It's quiet to me.
I think they expect you to connect the dots between the small text and that might be a...
I mean, in my intellectual brain, I get it, but like, I'm not reading One Piece with anything other than like my spinal cord.
I'm told that's the way to read it.
It's really fun.
It appeals to your brainstem chiefly.
Cog Talk. Cog Talk.
So, Paul, I got to ask, obviously translation is your job, and I, like, intellectually understand what that means. But, like, what does, like, a typical day look like? Like, I could explain, like, the dumb spreadsheets I do in, like, boring detail, but, like, what does, like, a day of translating look like in terms of, like, what's your workflow? Like, obviously, people don't just show you a picture of Luffy, and they're not like, all right, we'll get to work. Like, there's probably other stuff.
I mean, one of the things that I like about translation is that it's conceptually very simple. I have a piece of text in Japanese, and I gotta make that text be in English somehow with my fingers on a keyboard. So a day for me is essentially looking at the projects that I have currently on my table, figuring out approximately what I got to do on each one in order to have them in approximately on time, and then try to apportion out the productive hours of my day by working on those things, before my brain is just completely wrung out and I can't translate no more.
So do you have, like, I'm guessing deadlines and quotas based on output, I'm guessing?
Yeah, typically for manga and light novels, you'll get put on a series, and because it's always a pain when a translator can't work on a series anymore, because you lose all that accumulated knowledge that they built up translating up until that point.
Yeah.
Right.
So, ideally, you'll get offered something that's just starting out, and it's like, this is a new manga. Do you want to do it? This is assuming the editor in charge of the English edition knows you and wants to give you the work, and they'll email you and say, do you want to do this? And I'll say yes. And they'll say, okay, here's what I need it by. And then at that point, based on when they need the translation, I'll work out what the schedule, what my daily schedule needs to be in order to hit that date. Ideally, obviously, you get a bad brain day and it can be very difficult to translate. I mean, as everyone else in the world is learning now, working from home all the time is a mixed blessing at best.
Oh, for sure.
For me, like, literally, like, working on the book I'm working on right now, like, I print out pages of a PDF. I put them in front of me. I have a split keyboard that is on either side of the pages, and I look down at the Japanese and read it, and then I look up at the text editor and, like, type in the English.
Fuck.
It's very simple, except that it's essentially writing original words, and that's always hard.
Mm-hmm. So is this sounds a lot like what I understand of the workflow of a manga writer, which is to say, I'm getting the sense that you are chained to a big rock and have never seen the sun, and you just do that alone on your computer, and then when you're done, they send you more. I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's some more like joy in that process.
I would be full of shit if I said, yeah, I work as hard as a Japanese manga artist, because that's not true.
Man, what if they made you redraw it in English? Now that would suck.
Yeah, that would suck. Like, the manga workflow, work ethic is bonkers to me. And typically, when I'm accepting work and working out with an editor what the schedule is going to be, I try and, like, be honest about my availability such that I don't sign up for doing something that is gonna, like, kill me to try and finish in that amount of time. I mean, that said, like, have I, spent 14 hours in front of my desk, like, crunching on a book to finish it? Yeah, absolutely. And that it sucks. It's the worst when that happens. But it's like any kind of freelance work. It's sort of feast or famine.
So when you are like tapped to work on a book or a light novel, is it always one person at a time, or do you ever work like in a team and then you like have page ranges? Like is it just you always?
For like manga and light novels, it's almost always just one person. The only time multiple people will end up working on like a series is if one translator has to quit and another one has to take over. But you don't generally work on it at the same time, which is a shame, because when I was at New Type USA, which was like my first real job, it was like this awesome collaborative environment where like we had to translate half of the Japanese. Like New Type USA was a magazine that was half original US content and half content translated from the Japanese New Type. And so there was a staff of in-house translators, like in-house with a salary and benefits, which never happens.
Wow,
And yeah, those days are long gone. And a translator would like pick an article, and you would do like the first draft translation for an article, and then you would hand it off to another translator who would like do a line by line translation check, and then you'd go back and forth and like massage it, and we'd do like group proofreading around a table where we'd read stuff aloud and massage the text. And the quality of work that New Type USA was able to put out as a result of that process was incredible.
Right. You're like describing like an assembly line almost.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and it felt good to do. It was fun, and
like all processes that feel good and produce good work, it could never continue. It must be stamped out now.
It was too good for this world, and it's to my understanding, that's like that kind of environment for translation specifically is like a wild rarity, and it sucks that I had it for like 6 months early in my career and then never again.
Right. You got a taste of like what could be and will never happen again.
It's like, damn, the world does have hope and joy in it. Anyway, now that you know that, we're going to take it away forever. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You sort of already answered, I think, implicitly the question I'm about to ask, but like this is like a 1099 life, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. For like pop culture translation, some of the big video game studios have in-house translators, and most of the editors and on up the chain for the manga industry are in-house, at least for the larger publishers. So a lot of the people are getting benefits, but the translators and the letterers who are most involved with actually producing the manga that you see, that's that 1099 life.
Designating part of your home as an office for tax purposes.
I did that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, you've also sort of implicitly answered this. I feel like I know what the answer is going to be, but I want to know, like, do you have any say on what you get to work on other than like saying yes or no to what is offered to you? And the reason I ask is because since I knew that you were going to be on the show, I've been reading Spy Family, and there's a lot of instances in that manga where the little kid mishears something that an adult says and visualizes a little picture of what she thought they said. And it does.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it never really works. And every time it doesn't really work, I'm just like, I'm so sad for the poor freelancer who had to spend an entire day like pulling their brain out of their skull trying to figure out what the fuck.
Yeah, that's a nightmarish translation problem. So the long answer is usually not. Or rather, the short answer.
Wow, the short answer is just no.
The short answer is usually not. The long answer is sometimes, and it depends on how picky you are. And on how forward you're willing to be. Like, I know, so frequently when a publisher announces they've licensed a manga title, they've already picked the translator that's going to work on it. But sometimes they haven't. And if you happen to know someone at the publisher that's doing it, when you see the announcement, I mean, and you're a known freelancer for them, there's no hurt in emailing them and saying, hey, if you don't have a translator for this, I'd really like to work on it. Because it's obvious, it's always better to have someone who is excited about a thing working on something than someone who's just like whatever about it. When I was an editor, I always loved it when translators were really excited about a project that I gave them, because I've been on the other side of that desk too.
Yeah, that was
So
sort of a question I had to, like, you explained a 14-hour day, like crunching away at something to meet a deadline.
Yeah.
And like, what's that like when you're just kind of not into the source material?
So, if I have one professional superpower, it is the fact that I have no standards for what I will or won't work on.
Hell yeah.
I'll do anything. Like, I don't care how trashy and stupid it is. Not that I've ever worked on anything that was either trashy or stupid.
Yeah, this is 100% conjecture. If this did happen, this is how you would feel.
Right, exactly. But I do know that there are people who get really frustrated or they're uncomfortable for legitimate reasons working on certain kinds of material, or they get frustrated when it's really stupid, or they just don't like it very much. And for some reason, when I go into like translation brain mode, it's just like I'm a computer trying to make this Japanese go into English, and I don't really think about, like, is it good or do I like it?
Yo, I think this might actually be, and I didn't think that this could exist, but an instance where merging two pillars is actually helpful, because in this instance, you can simply shunt more of your mental energy into the cog silo, and then it doesn't matter what the anime's about, you're just doing your job.
Yeah. It's not bad. Like, it's kind of a living. But that said, like, when something is good, like legitimately good, that rules. Translating something that's like really good and like you're really into it and like the writing quality is really good is so much fun, because good writing is easier and more fun to translate.
I was reading what I believe to be a fan translation of Suicide Island, and about, I don't know, like 200 chapters in, just a very far along point, the person doing the translator wrote a note that was just like, I'm really fucking over this. I don't really care about these characters anymore. They're dumb as shit. Like, and he just wrote in the margin about like all the issues he had with it. And I was kind of enjoying it, but then I really started enjoying it because like this guy is just feeling compelled to finish this. And if you're doing fan translation, like you're not really making money off of it. This is a pure passion project.
No, you're not. I will say I have many translators start out in fan translation and then move into pro translation, and that's a topic of a lot of controversy, and I am fine with it. But I have never done any fan translation, and having now done so much translation for money, I cannot imagine doing it for free, and I especially can't imagine doing it for free if it were something I didn't like anymore.
Right. It's funny you bring that up because I didn't know that it was like kind of frowned upon. I saw a Twitter thread of various translators talking about their experiences trying to get real work when they had that in their history, and it's kind of a no-no in like some cases, right?
Like, I can get it if it's a series that's already being published in English or is being considered being published in English. But, like, even if it's something that, like, no company's going to publish, it's still a no-no?
Well, okay, so you shouldn't, like, pirate manga because the manga artist isn't getting compensated in any way for, like, fan translations of their work. So, like, as a blanket policy, like, it's not great to do it. I don't think there's anything wrong for like producing a translation of something that you are really into for like yourself and your friends and using it as like a portfolio piece if your goal is to become a professional translator. Like saying that you've like aided and abetted a bunch of piracy of One Piece is not going to like endear you to editors.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of a read the room situation in terms of when it's okay to say, hey, I did my own translation to this thing that I was a fan of. It's fine to do, and it's even fine to like say you've done, but don't like say, oh, P.S. I've also contributed to the fall of your industry. Lol. Like,
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah, here's the release group I worked for, stuff like
Right.
that.
Exactly. Don't do that.
Right.
So you're a Japanese translator. Are you like specifically a like Japanese pop culture translator? Like if someone came to you and was like, hey, we got a big book. We got like a manual about how to fix a tractor. We need that translated in English. Would you do that?
All like 98% of my professional work has been in anime and manga and related things. I have occasionally done a couple of very small side jobs when they've come my way, but I haven't really gotten into the other like in many ways much larger kind of workaday fields of technical and legal and medical translation, even though those are huge industries, because I haven't really needed to.
Right, and it seems like the pop culture stuff is like your comfort zone anyway.
It's my comfort zone. It's where I have all of my contacts. Like I've been doing this for like 15 years at this point, and I have as much work as I have time to do. I'm not like rich, but I also don't have any extra time, and what extra time I do have, I don't want to branch out into like an even more cog-like and boring version of what I'm already doing.
Sure, like my master's degree is in technical writing. It sucks. Like I cannot imagine doing something kind of fun like manga and then being like, oh man, I can't wait to talk about database authoring for this IBM manual.
Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode.
Paul, this is going to be a short and silly segment.
All right.
Just some shit that I've picked up through my, career being a manga and anime consumer.
Sure.
Anytime I see the Japanese word no, you'll see it in like Hajime no Ippo, Boku no Hero Academia, stuff like that.
Sure.
Whenever I see that Japanese...
I'm familiar with the word.
Yeah, that word no.
Yeah.
So what my brain does is it goes, oh, that's definitely the English word no. Hajime no Ippo. That means that this series is going to have no Ippo. Just none of it. That's like, I'm right? Like, that's the right way to read it. Like, what does the fucking word even mean? Is it like of? It's of, right?
It is. It's of. It's the possessive particle. Japanese has a little category of word called particles. They're kind of like articles, but not. They serve to demarcate the different parts of speech. And no is the possessive article. It's like putting an apostrophe S after the word that came before it.
Can you get in touch with the manager of Japanese? I don't think they know that actually no means no in English, and I feel like if they knew that, they'd like change it, because that's very like it seems like a big mix 'em up.
Well, you might be surprised actually, because Japanese did adopt the word the.
No way.
Yeah.
Like how? Like what's how?
Yeah, 100%. You know how when in English sometimes you'd like, if you really emphasize that word, it means something very specific. Like, oh, he's like the podcaster.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the anime or whatever. If you say that in Japanese, it works the same way.
Whoa.
So
It's like a super article, like heavy emphasis.
yeah, if you were like, if you wanted to say someone was like the otaku, you'd be like za otaku.
Holy shit.
Like za, which is like the Japanese pronunciation of the, and it comes directly from the.
Holy shit.
So no might make it in.
I have a feeling it won't. But thank you for humoring me.
Oh, by the way, that category of, oh, that sounds like this other unrelated English word, that kind of dumbass observation used to drive me fucking crazy when I was a dumb idiot guy who thought it was cool to be good at Japanese. And now I think it's hilarious. And if you observe to me that "do itashimashite," you're welcome, sounds like "don't touch my mustache," I will say correct, and that's hilarious.
It does sound like that. Fuck, I didn't know. But now
I was reading, like, I believe it was Kimi no Knife, and when someone got stabbed, I was like, they fucking lied to me.
The knife's right there.
Yeah.
there is a knife. There's at least one knife. All right, I have another stupid thing that I want to complain about. Another, I'm going to ask you questions about this. Like, why is it like this? I fucking know why it's like this. It's because translation is hard, and fucking you have to make decisions. And once a decision is made in a long running series, you have to go with it. You can't decide, actually, I want to translate it a different way. I know that's the reason, but I'm going to fucking complain about it anyway. It's about One Piece.
All right.
So there are these two characters that are big anthropomorphic dog and a big anthropomorphic cat. Now they in the sort of the fan community, they're known as their Japanese names, which is Inuarashi and Nekomamushi. Now, what Viz has done is they decided to translate those names into English, even though in this arc, there's plenty of people with Japanese names who they keep Japanese.
Sure.
They translated them to, respectively, Dog Storm and Cat Viper. Wait, why did they do that? What's that about?
So when did that happen in the run of One Piece? Like, is it recent? Like, or is it like way back when? Or
I say it's about 5 to 7 years ago. So like it was post time skip.
There's a time skip?
Oh yeah, there's a time skip in One Piece.
I haven't read One Piece. So.
It's a treat.
I know.
I heard some trauma in that tone.
No. I've been told it's very good. So the glib answer is it's completely impossible to be consistent when you're translating a series that's as batshit wacky as One Piece. Like, come on. Really?
That's true.
Like, do you? I mean, in your heart of hearts, do you want One Piece to make like really solid like etymological sense? Like,
no.
Do you want that?
No. Like everyone's
is that what Luffy would want?
No, he doesn't know about grammar. He hasn't heard of it yet.
It is wild to think that something running as long as One Piece has, at the start of it, there were decisions that were like kind of arbitrary, and they just have to stick with them.
So, I mean, the problem is the answer is that it's complicated, and a lot of different people work on the translation of these books, and a decision that made sense at one point might not make sense later. Something might just be a straight up mistake. I mean, mistakes happen all the time. God, I have made some truly horrible translation mistakes. And it's really hard to have something be perfectly consistent when you're translating it as it comes out and you don't know where the creator is going to take it. Like when there are a bunch of Japanese terms in One Piece, you're faced with a question of like, how important is the Japaneseness to this?
Yeah.
Should I translate these terms, or should I leave them not translated? And then later it's like, oh, the Japaneseness wasn't important at all. So for this arc, I'm going to translate the terms. And then, like 10 volumes later, it's like, oh, and now we're in Japan land where everything's Japanese.
I mean,
you're like,
you joke, but that's literally the current arc.
Of course, I didn't know that, but of course it is. Like, so like, it's an impossible task with these enormous long-running series, especially when you don't necessarily know when you're making these early decisions where an author is going with this, and sometimes they don't know. And like as a translator, that's your worst nightmare, where you get a term where you don't know what something is, and you translate it one way because you're given no information. I remember a friend of mine had a case where they had to translate. There was like the word ishi, and the word ishi means like rock or stone, but it encompasses a bunch of different like senses of like a piece of mineral. And they went with, based on context, it was some magical thing. They went with like gem because they were like, I'm pretty sure this is meant to be like a magical gem. And then when it showed up like 8 volumes later, it's like this giant fucking boulder, and they're like, what the fuck?
No.
How was I supposed to know that? And there's literally no way to have known that.
That sucks.
You mentioned you've like had to make choices that you later regretted translation wise. Were any of them like humor related? Because I feel like one of the things that always blows my mind is like puns trying to be translated for English seems like a nightmare.
I mean, anytime I run across a pun, it's just like the worst thing in the world. Like a pun, or like you mentioned earlier, where like there's a visual representation of like the thing that she misunderstood the sentence as, and you're like, that means I can't just make up some other, and it's really, really bad. There was a series that I worked on that had a lot of word games in it, like as a feature of the thing, and it was bar none like the most nightmarish job I have ever had. It was god awful, and the problem is there's never a good solution. Like once in a great while you'll hit upon something brilliant, like it just works, and you'll be like, oh my god, I'm a genius, and you feel amazing. And then the other 100 times you're translating a joke, you're like, this fucking sucks.
I wonder how many like gag manga people are like, these jokes are weak. This is terrible. But like in the original, the jokes kick ass. And, like, the translator did as good a job as they could, but, like, what do you fucking want?
So I've worked on some gag manga. I was the editor for the entire run of a series called Aho Girl, which was from Kodansha, which is a yonkoma, a 4-panel manga about a girl who's really dumb.
Sounds promising.
Yeah.
And the joke was, she's just an idiot. That's the whole joke. There was no wordplay, or when there was wordplay, it was so fucking stupid that you didn't have to worry about what the subtlety is. You just have to be like, what's the dumbest thing I could put in here? And it was great. It was so funny. I had so much fun with it because the joke is, oh my God, she's an idiot.
This owns.
It sounds like when you start translating something, it's like you start spinning plates, and then the longer the series goes, you just keep getting handed more plates, and they're like, whatever you do not let these stop spinning.
Yeah, that is completely accurate. And like the long-running shonen series are like the worst case scenario. Like, you know, One Piece is just like, you know, Stephen Paul just being like, fuck!
I think you have given me a lot of sort of context into these things that bug me. I'm sure that they bug the translator way more, and I'm able to now look at them with a more charitable eye. I understand that, you know, these decisions that a human mind made years ago now just have to stick around. That said, if fucking 1 week a chapter of the official fucking One Piece Viz translation showed up on my Shonen Jump app, and the first page was just like editor's note, Zoro is called Zoro now instead of Zolo, every fucking reader of One Piece in the world would just be like, oh my God, thank you!
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you that there are two possibilities. There is another possibility, and this is pure conjecture on my part, which is something's bad because the Japanese publisher said it had to be that way.
Oh, they might do that. I
If
wouldn't put it past them.
Sometimes they have a reason. Sometimes they don't have a reason. Sometimes it's no, you can't change it. We've decided that this is the way it's going to be. And when the word of God comes down, there is nothing you can do.
That may be, but there are fucking wanted posters for Zoro in the art. And when Oda draws the wanted posters, he writes out wanted and the name in English. And it's fucking Zoro with an R.
Oh, that's rough. That's rough.
Well,
if I were the editor I can guarantee you the editor on One Piece is they die a little bit inside every time they have to write Zolo. I promise you.
Yeah, well, it's pretty easy to just use your brain to sub in an R. Anyway.
Yeah.
Never been horny. Never been horny. Don't tell the paper that I ever got horny.
Okay, so there's something I've been wanting to ask you guys about ever since the term, thanks to you, entered my vocabulary and then like burrowed its way into my brainstem like that thing from Wrath of Khan.
Oh, this is high praise already. I love it.
It's the word numby. And I love this word so much. I didn't know that I needed a term to describe a meaningless number that I want to go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That shows you're a great translator, because that is a more cogent definition than I could provide.
Maybe my translator background is what gives me an appreciation for this kind of thing, because I love it so much. I use it all the time. My great gaming shame is that I play a lot of No Man's Sky, and I play No Man's Sky because there's a numby that's how much money I have, and I want that numby to go up.
Oh, I thought you were going to say down. Holy shit, thank God.
And if I put tiles together in the right way, ignoring the beautiful world generation going on around me, I can make that numby go up a little faster. Mind, I already have more money than anything in the game costs by like a factor of 10.
That was my question. I was like, are you at a point in the game where the number truly doesn't matter? And the answer is yes.
The number does not matter, but I still want it to go up. It's a true numby, and I wanted to first thank you for giving me the word numby. And second of all, because for my personal style sheet, I need this information. How is it spelled?
Do you mean in its plural form or its singular form, or both?
I would assume that the plural form, going by English convention, would be Numbies.
Joe, do you think that's... Do you agree? Spoiler, I think that's the plural spelling. Joe,
Oh, yeah.
do you agree?
Oh, I agree.
So, but what's the singular?
Joe, I have my answer ready, but I'm curious as to yours, and I don't want mine to influence you. So I want to know what you think.
Please let this be the rift that drives you apart.
When I think of the singular form of numbies, I'm thinking a BY. I've always thought a BY.
Yes! Joe, we're homies forever.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, a BIE, like... I don't know. I can't give a good reason why that's wrong, but
I can. Do you want me to give it, Joe? Want me
Sure.
to take over?
Please. Oh God, I want to hear it.
So I think that the reason that so many of our sicko terms burrow into our listeners' minds, and this is a point of praise that we've gotten a bunch, and it's like so fucking gratifying. It's more gratifying than telling us that we're funny. And I think what it is that these terms that we use, they are sort of like jagged and unpleasant. Like you don't usually hear them because to hear them is bad. Like numby, it just kind of sounds wrong, and
it sounds kind of dumb.
Yes.
And bad.
oh yeah.
It sounds like anyone who has dignity wouldn't say that, and
Exactly.
so it's like misshapen and ugly and sharp.
Mr. Ed wouldn't even say that.
And because of that, it's so memorable and it sticks. Like it's sharp, so that when you pull on it to get it out of your brain, you're like, "Ouch! It's catching. I'll just leave it."
A good metaphor.
And because of that, the singular has got to be Numby because it looks wrong. It looks like nummy. You're mad at it.
Yeah.
So it has to be that.
I like that explanation. Thank you for giving me the canonical spelling of numby.
It's also a good term because, like, if you take away the concept of numby as we define it, like, that's 80% of video games. Like, there's nothing left.
Yes.
If you remove the
not
concept
at
of
all.
numbers
Yeah,
going
it is.
up, yeah.
Like, I've been playing a ton of Yakuza 0, and the fucking split between amount of time I've spent on the story and the amount of time I've spent on the numby go up mini games is fucking gruesome.
Yeah.
It also helps that, like, that number is money.
Yes, and it's yen, so there's 2 more zeros than I'm used to.
We're the anime sickos, and we're here to say anime is bad in a war crimes way.
I recently, and by recently I mean today, finished the entire run of Goodnight Pun Pun by Inio Asano, which is fucking incredible. Like, not just as like a manga, just like as literature, it is a staggering work of a genius, and is so it's like incredible. Like teach it in a school, good. Like fuck.
Man, I should read it.
Here's the thing. I love this work, I love everything Asano has done. I think he's one of the greatest living writers in any medium. The fun thing is that I've actually never read any of his writing ever, because he writes in Japanese. So I haven't read it. What I've done is I've read a translation, and so I looked to see who the credited translator is for Goodnight Punpun, and it's JN Productions, a fucking Hawaiian company where on their fucking website, their thing that they show to prove that they're a good translation agency is they show a lot of menus that they've translated and like signs to put up in workplaces about like wear your hard hat. So this fucking sucks. I have no idea who wrote this work that I love, and I feel like just in general, all the shit we read in manga is actually by translators, and I feel like they probably don't get their due. I mean, I imagine someone is a fan of a specific translator, but that's got to be the exception to the rule, right?
I mean, yes and no. Being like, if you're a manga fan who like follows the work of a particular translator, that's like a movie fan who gets really excited about like a cinematographer.
Right.
They do exist.
And they do exist, but they're not how most people watch movies, and they don't even it shouldn't even really be how people watch movies. People generally don't go into translation because they want to be in the spotlight, but that doesn't mean that translators don't want to be credited for their work. And they should be credited for their work. With the Goodnight Punpun thing you mentioned, that clearly sounds like the work of an agency. Translation agencies are like a middleman that stand between translators who actually translate and people who need translation. And the manga industry generally doesn't use them, but sometimes it does. And sometimes that agency won't like disclose the identity of the translator or whatever. They have their own terms. And so that's how something like that happens. But that's pretty rare. Almost always you'll find a translator's name in the back of a manga that you're reading.
Mm-hmm. Like I looked at Sano's earlier work, Solanin, and that was also JN Productions, but I have volumes of his current series that does have a credited translator. So fucking thank God eventually they got a name down there.
Might be the same person, or it might not. And it might be the same person who kind of got out from under the agency and is now working directly for Viz. That happened to me once. It does happen. But yeah, and in terms of like your point that you've never read these Japanese artists' work, you've only read the translator's work. I'm of two minds about that because I've translated both prose and manga. And when I'm translating prose, I'm very aware of the fact that like when anybody reads, Spice and Wolf or Haruhi Suzumiya or whatever, like they're reading my prose. Like that's my writing. I wrote those books. Every word that's in those books, I put it there. And I say that not to take credit, but more like to take blame. Like,
Yeah.
If you don't like it, that's on me. If it's good, that's because the author wrote a good book that I was able to write a good version of. With manga, I feel like it's different because there's such a visual component to it. And depending on the nature of the writing, like the writing might not be that big of a deal. Like some manga does have like really exquisite writing and just amazing dialogue, and it's a joy to translate. And in that case, the translator really does get to like add a lot of value to the work because they're taking elevated language and making sure that it stays elevated. But sometimes the language is pretty utilitarian. Like, the language you typically find in Weekly Shonen Jump is pretty much characters yelling about how they feel.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that that's not bad. It's just all you have to do as a translator is like not fuck it up.
Yeah, like no one's gonna accuse you of not honoring the vision of the yelling boy enough.
Right.
Did you make the boy yell about Resolve? You did. Cool.
Is he talking about his friends? Is he getting really mad because someone said friends suck ass?
Oh man. Oh no.
Sorry, that was a little footnote. That's also one of my all-time favorite tweets. Anyway, a little callback there.
Yeah.
But like in more literary manga or manga with a stronger written component that the translator really has a chance to make shine. I mean, I think it's really nice when the translator gets something more than the work for hire check they got to write it. Because the translators don't get royalties or anything like that. It's all just, assembly line work for hire. And anytime anybody does call out a translation as being really good, like in a review or in just like, on social media or anything, like, it is always really nice as a translator to hear that someone took a few seconds to be aware that somebody had to do this and that you liked their work.
Yeah, like, as like a dumb guy who doesn't know much about translating, I only notice it when it's like pretty bad.
Right, and that's how it should be.
It should feel like the work just passes through a mist chamber and comes out translated, and it's like, magic.
Yeah. I do love the fan translations that are so bad. Like, you can see a speech bubble that clearly had a ton of text and instead just has like no in it. That shit rules. I love it.
Yeah, that's always very good. I like the fan translations that just like put a huge amount of profanity in for no reason. That's the best.
Yeah, I remember being like 13 and downloading anime from Kazaa and didn't know people did that.
Yeah.
Like, there would just be like characters in the background just being like, fuck, dick, fuck. And I was like, I guess that's how it is.
Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode.
So, Paul, we spent a lot of time talking about your professional life and allowing us to get an insight into like what it means to be a translator. I gotta ask though, like, when it comes to personal consumption, how are you not totally burned out on like anime and games? Like, I feel like if I was tasked with writing about video games, I would play them less.
Yeah, I completely understand. I think for me, like, so much of like my angst over translation is focused on like specific problems and not like the medium as a whole. So I might have a hard time like enjoying something that I worked on in a non-work context, but it doesn't sour me like on the medium. So like when I, pull up Crunchyroll to like watch the latest whatever, if it's not something that I'm working on, the only thing that makes me different from just a random weeaboo who's watching it is that I might like, I won't even complain about the subtitles. I'll just point out I might have done that a little bit differently, like a nerd. Mm-hmm. But that's just because you kind of can't turn that part of your brain off. But I don't really get burned out on it. Or if I did, it happened so long ago I've forgotten. And this is just my corpse, which is possible because I've been doing this for a long time.
Well, it sounds like you have like a very powerful brain that can just like compartmentalize like that. That's not easy to do.
I mean, yeah, with manga though, because I've worked on manga so much, it is a little bit harder with manga, I will admit. I know a lot of translators read Japanese manga for fun. I rarely read Japanese for fun because I spend so many hours a day doing it for work that like reading Japanese feels like work to me.
Yeah, I mean, like if your job is stacking boxes, you don't go home and you're like, wow, can't wait to get home and stack some boxes for fun.
Yeah, but like, you say that, but like in a sense, like, my original reason for learning Japanese was like, oh man, I want to be able to read manga in the original language, and now I can, and like I don't do it unless someone's paying me to do it. But I do engage with the stuff as a fan. I have manga that I'm a fan of and read. I have anime that I watch, and it hasn't really damaged my enjoyment of it per se. I just with manga though, I notice things that other people don't notice. Like, because I worked in manga editorial for so long, I will notice like the centering of words in a bubble, or like the particular technique they're using, or like, I see they're using an M dash instead of two N dashes. Bold choice. Like, is this a Blambot font or a Comic Crazy font?
Comic Crazy.
Like, I'm now, more familiar with like the specific typographical choices made by various houses and so on. So I'll just I'll notice that, but it doesn't ruin it for me. If anything, in general, like, I will notice the small details of a good job more than I would have in the past, and that is what I love. It's like when I am like watching anime or reading manga, and I see something that's just like a really great translation, just like something that's just like apt as hell, like really elegant, and like an elegant way to get around a tricky problem. I feel like that must feel like what it would be like to be like a mathematician and see like a beautiful proof. You're just like, yes, the universe is good. Like, I admire the work of a fellow mind. Like, just seeing somebody else really nail it in a way that I know I would have been proud to nail it, it makes me happy that I get to appreciate that work.
That's sort of like the mark of a craft, right? Is when you can see the problems that someone has overcome, whereas like a normal person just sees what's in front of them.
Yeah. And that's always very rewarding.
I gotta ask, so anime and manga, huge in the overseas, in the West. Really crossed over big time. Light novels, huge in Japan. Why would I ever read one of those? I don't get the appeal. What's the deal? A novel? Why don't I just watch a cartoon? Were you like into light novels before? Has translating them made you like become a fan of them? Because like to me that seems like a aspect of like the Japanese pop culture that just has not translated to success in the West. Or am I wrong? Do they sell huge and I'm just the dummy?
They have been a growing segment for several years, and against all predictions, light novels as a category are a success. I don't think they're like a giant slam dunk success, but they are making money for publishers, and that's a pretty big deal. As to why, hopefully everyone has stopped listening to this episode by now, because the truth is I have no idea. I got into this industry, that corner of the industry, I got into it because it was offered to me, and I said, sure, I'll try that. And I like to think I'm pretty good at it. Like, I'm a decent writer in English, so my translation usually reads pretty well. But no, I don't read light novels for fun, almost without exception, and in English or Japanese. And it's not because I think they suck. It's just because they are just generally not super of interest to me. And I find their success in the United States to be completely baffling.
I don't understand the name, I guess. Like, does light imply, is it just like not mentally taxing? Is that what it's supposed to be?
I mean, kind of, yes, although it's not necessarily true. I think it mostly means short and serialized.
Oh. Okay.
It's like a novel of, between 50 and 75,000 words, that's like an ongoing series, kind of like a manga. That's sort of what light novel means.
This MF talking about Goosebumps.
It sounds pulpy, but I realize pulp has a connotation that is like, I don't know, schlocky.
I don't think you're wrong at all. I think it's analogous to pulp pretty precisely, except for the fact that the readership in Japan is almost entirely teenagers.
So it's like young adult novels.
It is like serialized young adult fiction, basically. Yeah.
Well, that makes it sound really normal. Light novel makes it sound like a strange, inscrutable thing I'd never understand.
The hell of the thing is, the early experience with light novel publishing in the United States, they tried to like repackage it to make it look more like a regular novel, and the fans rebelled immediately, famously.
Why?
They were like, we want to see the original Japanese cover art. Don't give us this shitty Western cover art. Like, we don't want it like, we want the full weeb experience. We want to have something that feels as close to us as what we perceive the Japanese readers to have gotten.
I get it. It's like people getting mad that they took the Toriyama art off of Dragon Quest and put on some bullshit.
Oh, precisely that. Yes, that is exactly the same thing.
Do they how do they look then? Like, do they not look like typical novels? Are they bound differently? I guess I am trying to imagine what you could rebel against in terms of aesthetics.
They're what are called bunkobon, which are just like really small prose books. They're very minimally packaged. They just have the soft cover. They have like a little dust jacket with the art on it. They're really, really cheap. Like even now, they tend to cost less than $5.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you can't buy a new book for like less than $12. But yeah,
no, they might be a little bit more, like maybe like 600 or 700 yen sometimes. But yeah, they're really cheap.
Fuck, that sounds awesome.
It almost sounds like somewhere between like a young adult novel and a zine in terms of production.
Yeah, and the economies of publishing scale in Japan still work in the favor of that, such that they can still justify the print runs they make because they're going to sell them, and the quality is reasonably high. But they're very small, they're very portable. It's a much handier format in Japanese than it is in English typically.
I gotta ask, is there the same collector impulse for them, or are they like seen as disposable?
I think it depends. I think there are definitely like diehard nerds who never sell any book they buy, but they're meant to be pretty disposable.
Okay.
Certainly more so than the books here are.
Right.
But yeah, I would not have picked that horse to win. I find it crazy and kind of delightful that it has, because I mean like an entire generation of Japanese prose translators are now like have like full-time work translating Japanese like fiction into English. If you told me this was going to be a thing like in 2003, I would have laughed. So it's great. I love it.
Right. Like, good luck getting a job that doesn't involve lots of fighting guys.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine a lot of these still have fighting guys in them.
But no pictures.
No pictures. What's the fucking point?
I mean, there are a few pictures. You get a few color illustrations in the front, and then there's like like usually, I don't know, 8 or 9 like black and white illustrations in the inside of the book. So they have like some pictures.
That's like Charles Dickens books.
Yeah.
God, who was that guy? I knew about that guy in college. The guy who drew the Charles Dickens pictures. That guy rules. He should have written manga.
They should put him in Bungo Stray Dogs. I don't know if you guys know about Bungo Stray Dogs.
That's the one where it's like all literary characters, right?
It's all characters from like 20th century Japanese literary history. Yeah.
And they're like detectives, and they have like powers, right?
Yeah, they're like detectives with powers. It's ridiculous.
That kicks ass.
It's all the stuff, it's all the people that I studied in grad school who had really depressing lives and killed themselves, except what if they were detectives and hot and had powers? That's Bungo Stray Dogs.
Are they part of a special organization?
I think some of them definitely are.
Oh, good. That's the good shit. When there's like an organization that has a hierarchy that has inherent drama based on ranks. Oh, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, baby.
It's almost as good as a tournament.
Yeah, it's basically like a tournament at an office.
Fuck. I just feel like the fact that there are people from the past that you know, like if you're writing a story and you have the ability to bring public domain guys from the past that everyone knows about and give them powers, like, you're fucking stupid. Like, you're leaving money on the table. This is why Fate is so good. Like, because it's like King Arthur, I know that. Oh fuck, King Arthur's a girl now? Oh, I wonder if they have powers. Oh, she too. Fuck. It's like, it rules.
Yes. It's never bad.
So that's pretty much all we got for this episode, Anime Sickos, with guest star, whoa, Paul Starr. You're the star. Thank you for joining us, Paul. That was not planned.
Thank you. It's the first time anyone's ever made a joke about my last name ever.
I didn't do it on purpose. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
So, Paul, in addition to reading your translations of the manga titles Me and Roboco and Mori King on the Shonen Jump app, which y'all should be doing, where can people go to find out more about you and your stuff?
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is @PTS, and I'm there too much. And I also have an adequate website where you can see some of my translations and other things I've done, and the URL for that is pauls.adequate.website.
Truly one of the best URLs of all time. It was a joy having you on. Very interesting stuff. And also, you cracked the code on how to get onto Anime Sickos, which is ask us.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's been a true pleasure. I was really excited when you got back to me within like 5 minutes, and we're like, yeah, sure. Like, oh, fuck, now I feel bad, weirdly.
It's always funny when like someone reaches out and is like, I love the show, and I'm like, well, that's weird because I didn't go to high school with you. Wait, maybe you worked at the same Kohl's I did in 2007. That's probably what happened. In Crestwood, Illinois. That's probably what it is.
Anyway, thank you all for listening. This has been a great time. I have been Tom, an anime sicko.
I am Joe, an anime sicko.
I am Paul Starr, an anime sicko.
We'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at Sharia Uncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos, or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.